me 1 minute.
तो
I
आप
think
कहाँ पे हैं? विश्वनाथम सेंटर फॉर
ये विश्वनिधन सेंटर फॉर एशियन ब्लूसमिंग चेन्नई में है.
अच्छा
yes चेन्नई में, and we are a public intellectual trust.
वेरी गुड.
So dear and respected friend, kindly mute yourself. Now we are live on our YouTube channel. So let me start today's session with an invocation of a song as we following our traditions. Let me share the screen. Thank you so much for your kind attention. I, Randhir Kumar Gautam, on behalf of Swadhyay Chakra, Circle for Asian Blossoming, Vishwaneedam Center for Asian Blossoming, welcome you to our today's international webinar on the very topic, Hope in Sikh Religion. It is a movement of extreme pleasure to welcome the guests who are virtually present here to attend this webinar. I welcome Honorable Speaker, Dr. Hardev Singh from Canada. He is a professor of Eminence, Sri Guru Granth Sahib World University. I welcome Professor Anant Giri, moderator of today's session, Dr. Gianluigi, Professor Meera Chakrabarti, and all the respected participant viewers both on Facebook platform and Zoom platform. Let me give a brief introduction to our honorable speaker. Professor Hardev Singh is an eminent professor of physics. He did his PhD from very famous Mary Curie University in 1972 in nuclear physics, but his deep interest in spirituality and spiritual philosophy made him a very different person. Professor Hardev Singh has published 425 research papers in very reputed journals, 41 books in areas of science, religion, and literature, and more than 150 articles in science, philosophy, and review. Thank you so much, sir, for accepting our invitation. Let me also give a brief introduction to our Swadhyay Chakra. Swadhyay Chakra is a circle of self and mutual studies. It is an initiative of studying, learning self, culture, societies, and the world. Friends associated with this are eager to walk and mediate with new horizons of thinking and new movements of social and cultural change at work in our contemporary world. We study seekers such as Sri Aurobindo, Mahatma Gandhi, Chittaranjan Das, a creative thinker and creative soul from Orissa, and many others around the world. We also present our own writings and reflect upon our creativity together. We also invite seekers from different fields of life to share with us their lives, vision, sadhana, and struggles for creating a world of beauty, dignity, and dialogue. We are having more than 5 collaborations with different universities. Today is a very important topic, and we got a good response from our participants all over the world. Sikhism at its inception under Nanak was marked by the quest for peace, hope, and love. It's a great faith promoting egalitarianism, religious harmony, universal brotherhood, truthful conduct, and peace and love to all. Guru's life and their emancipatory teachings help us to think about hope of creative future. It's reward every effort to become divine. For that matter, it gives man to hope, strength, and optimism. With this brief introduction, now I would like to invite moderator of today's session to give a kind of a brief introduction for today's session. Yes, Professor Anant Kumar, please. Please unmute yourself. Yes.
Sat Sri Akal and Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ka Fateh, and dear Randhir, and respected Professor Hardev Singh, Professor Ramesh Singh, Gianluigi, Professor Meera Chakrabarti, and all friends co-present. So it is a very important theme for us to work and meditate today. And today also is the World Health Day. So as we reflect upon, as we look forward to be enriched by Professor Hardev Singh and also Gianluigi, who has been deeply working and meditating with the vision and calling of hope from many traditions, the philosophical and spiritual traditions. So on this World Health Day, we are invited to understand the deep thread between hope and health. And this health in the Sikh tradition is also quite multidimensional. Now, health emerges out of love of life and the world. And when we suffer from a kind of escape from the world in the name of renunciation or salvation, it creates ill health in self and society. And the deep contribution of Guru Nanak is that he was with the world in varieties of ways. At the same time, he was not imprisoned within the world. His life, therefore, is deeply inspiring. He embodied a path of sadhana, which can be called as worldly world renunciation, being with the world, at the same time not being imprisoned within the world. And hope arises, both health and hope arises from this practice of being with the world and at the same time not being imprisoned within the world. And therefore the Sikh tradition is a very deep experiment with humanity in terms of many things. One is that how we can be with the world, at the same time be not imprisoned within the world. And that way, the Sikh tradition follows many important traditions of humanity. If we, for example, look at the Abrahamic tradition, both the Judaic and the Islamic, in both the Islamic and the Judaic, the speaker, the seeker, especially the priest, is not renunciate in a conventional sense. For example, he is not expected to be a bachelor, and so he is with the world. Therefore, the Sikh path resonates with this world effort in being with the world, with our family, with our agriculture. Guru Nanak did agriculture. Even when he was enlightened, he worked with the land. At the same time, Guru Nanak, with his co-traveler and collaborator Mardana, he traveled all across. And one thing, therefore, to draw from Guru Nanak's life and teaching vis-a-vis hope is that when we travel across, when we move across, that moving across constitutes a space and time of hope. Because when we are imprisoned within our world of familiarity, we think as if the world's possibility is enclosed within the world of familiarity. Therefore, Guru Nanak's deep travel, both inner and relational, both inner and spatial. He went to Mecca, he went to the south, and he went all the way to Tibet. And also he came to our land of Lord Jagannatha. And when Guru Nanak came to Lord Jagannatha, then he sang a prayer to both Lord Jagannatha and cosmos. And that is the first cosmic prayer, the cosmic song as Rabindranath Tagore says, that this is one of the first cosmic songs that Guru Nanak composed, which again constitutes a source of hope. Because when we are imprisoned too much within the world, and today in the present collapse, in the present context of both collapse of social relations, world relations, and climate collapse. For example, climate collapse. How do we overcome climate collapse with a sense of hope? And that hope comes from the fact that the world has been created, and we have faith in the world that the world would not be immediately destroyed. But this hope is not just a passive hope, it is an active hope. In a way, it is an active passive hope. And that active passive hope emerges from varieties of movements and meditations that we cultivate. So therefore, today we look forward to be enriched by Professor Singh on this theme of hope. And finally, that the whole concept of hope and Sikh tradition also can be related to the whole question of border crossing. Because Sikh religion, in fact, Professor J.P.S. Uberoi, who is a deep spiritual seeker as well as, a scholar of religious traditions of humanity. He, building on the work of Robert Bellah, who wrote on religious evolution, he says that the birth of Sikh religion suggests that the evolutionary experiment with religion has not stopped. And that is, and what was that evolutionary experiment? That Guru Nanak really embodied border crossing between Hinduism in a very broad sense and Islam. And Sri Aurobindo comments that it is a misfortune for India and humanity that the effort in integration or border crossing between Islam and Hinduism that was cultivated by Guru Nanak, unfortunately, its full potential has not been realized. And Guru Nanak built upon Baba Farid, and Baba Farid has this line, "Do not give me scissors, for I do not know how to cut. Give me needle, I would like to thread." And this act of threading, hope comes from this act of threading. And today is also Ramadan, and let us, Ramadan also, the whole practice of Ramadan and the practice of sharing of food and labor in the Sikh tradition, all fasting, sharing of food, fasting and feasting together, the love, labor and learning, also learning the music. And another important source of hope in Guru Nanak, for example, the song that we say, Sas Sas Samiran Govind. Therefore, Gita Govinda, for example, which was composed by Jayadeva, who was born with Odisha. Gita Govinda is part of Guru Granth Sahib as the Dohas of Kabir. So that kind of a text, which is not just a closed text, it is not just a book, it is a library. So when we realize our books as a library, without being closed within a fundamentalism and the literal interpretation of the book, as we are today suffering from the limits of fundamentalism. So hope emerges from this kind of making ourselves, each one of us, not only our book, not only a closed book as Guru Granth Sahib is a library. And this library is not just limited to the book, it is a library with nature and cosmos. With this brief and small little submissions, then both Randhir and myself, we would invite Professor Singh to help us.
I think I have so many friends here. Should I start now?
Yes, please.
Yes, sir, please.
Okay. I will share the screen in a minute. So I never knew that Ananta Giri knows more about Sikhism and Guru Nanak than many Sikhs, including myself. It was such a beautiful introduction he has given about Guru Granth and Guru Nanak's message. I see Bhai Harbans Lal, who is a great motivator from, maybe it is 11 p.m., but he was thinking I will speak on, this title was a little confusing, Hope in Sikh Religion. That is a very wide topic. Then I tried to, you will see my screen, change or adjust the topic to my theme. So I put hope and desire in this presentation. And if you allow, let's see, I share the screen first. Yeah. Is it okay?
Yes, yes.
You see the, yeah. So once it starts, because sometimes there are technical problems. Now the topic, hope in Sikh religion, I have purposely modified it to a critique of hope and desire in the Sikh religion. So, because if you translate hope in Punjabi or Hindi, it is Aas, or in Hindi, it is Asha. So there was a beautiful Shabad which inspired me, and I will be quoting from that Shabad somewhere in the next slides. Now, today I was reading the Nature Report, the most important and oldest journal. There I found a photograph which I am sharing. Sorry, first acknowledgements. Instead of giving acknowledgement at the end, I have put it here because I am grateful to my friend, Professor Dr. Gianluigi of University of Viena, Austria, for introducing me to the forum Cultivating Transformative Faith and a New Ecology of Hope. I caught him on academia about 2-3 months back, and I call him Gyan means knowledge, Luigi, the storehouse of knowledge. So he is really a knowledgeable person who has written and delivered lectures on, Greek philosophy, Plato's thought, and Indian philosophy from Upanishads. Professor Ananta Kumar Giri, professor at Madras Institute, who introduced this topic very beautifully. Randhir Kumar Gautam was helping me via emails, and of course my limitation. I am not a Sikh theologian. I did all my work. Even now I am working. Ramesh is a good friend. He knows about my work on earthquake studies. But I started with the, elementary particle. The colleagues of Higgs who discovered God particle, they were sitting almost close to my laboratory in Paris those days. It took 40 years to get a Nobel Prize by the Higgs and his colleague. So I don't claim an authority on the exegesis of the 6 scriptures Sri Guru Granth Sahib, the basis of my presentation today. So I have my library in Mohali near Chandigarh. Here I could rely on 2 friends. There is an online source, srigranth.org, created by a doctor, Kalbir Singh Thin, and then a professor, Dr. Kirpal Singh in New Zealand. He was also helpful in supplying some of the quotes. Now this photograph, of course, This is every city has been destroyed. I found it in the search journal. I don't know what is the purpose, but I could see the building, the massacre is going on. Is there any hope for Mariupol residents? Then I found another video. If you just happen to see this man, see the hope is being provided. So this video and many other videos, they tell that man still is at barbaric age. This hope for the hopeless. This is Ravi Sidhu, born in India, Hoshiarpur, in a small village. He was a naughty boy, but after reaching England, he got his master's in business management. He is the chief executive officer of Khalsa. Today, I spent more time on study of the work which he is doing before my presentation, and I was wondering, he is on BBC everywhere where there is an earthquake, tsunami, or even North America when ISIS was killing the people of Kurdistan. He was there in the war. So how daring he is. So far, even in, this war going on in Ukraine, Ravi Sidhu has his fellows put his camp in Poland, Romania, and feeding without any distinction of caste, creed, all type of refugee, but his work has been appreciated, how he extracted all the Indian students from Ukraine. So I just show that there are people who are still the hope for the hopeless. Now this is a proverb, hope sustains life. In high school, I somehow remember it was there. And it happened in my life also. If you read my Journey in Science, which is an autobiography, I have described my own experiences there, how in college or school days, when everything was, almost there were murders in the family, our property was acquired by those who murdered my maternal nanny. So that gives me that hope is a must, life of whatever technology is there, but hope sustains life. There is a well-known proverb. Now, neuroscience has found there is a consciousness in non-living, even in stone. Guru Nanak in the Bani has written, "Fail patthar mein jant paye, taka rizq aage karta raya." You see, Guru Nanak and other gurus were far ahead than the scientific discoveries made in cosmology or in neurosciences. So there is nutrition provided to the worms which live in the stone, but now science has established. So I say this, the truth of age-old proverb may be verified. Hope is defined as a feeling of expectation and desire for a certain thing to happen. You know it. There are equivalents in English: aspiration, anticipation, optimism, and eagerness. But I don't like this Cambridge dictionary. Of course, all dictionaries give their, meanings which have a different purpose. The dictionary meanings are to want something to happen. Of course, it is okay, or to be true, and usually have a good reason to think so. So this is what the dictionary defines. Now I go to the why hope is necessary. Research indicates that hope can help us manage stress and anxiety and cope with adversity. Professor Giri was referring to this in his introduction. It contributes to our well-being and happiness and motivates positive action. Discussions of hope can be found throughout the history of philosophy and across all Western philosophical traditions, even though philosophy has traditionally not paid the same attention to hope as it has to attitudes like belief and desire. Almost all major philosophers acknowledge that hope plays an important role in regard to human motivation, religious belief, or politics. You will excuse me, I tried to read as much as I could do today in 2-3 hours. There is a very good essay with me. But I wonder, Plato, he was against hope. He did not like. There are many quotes I am not going to. Aristotle was also, so the Greek philosophers, they were not in appreciation of hope and life. I don't know the reason. Gianluigi knows more philosophy than me. Now, sorry, there are many things, it has been. I will go back. Hope in Sikh religion. I think it is okay. Yeah. Why hope is necessary? This I have already covered. So sometime, I maybe hope in Sikh religion. I was using another point. All religions provide a ray of hope. If you count the number of people India or Africa or other developing countries where poverty is to that level, people don't get enough food for survival, but they have a ray of hope. The humanity evolved to the present stage based on hope, despite the dictum, survival of the fittest. Hope is linked to desire and expectation. If desires are not fulfilled, one becomes a pessimist. In Sikh religion, the term used for hope is Asha in Hindi, which can be interchangeably used for hope and desire. In Sikh scripture, Sri Guru Granth Sahib, hope and desire are juxtaposed. Human prays to God with the hope that his desires will be fulfilled, but it depends upon the grace of God to accept his prayer. No idea of hope in Christianity. I read Bible during my days in Paris because it is a simple book in, prose. There are many books. So I quote only few from the book of Jeremiah. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. So a lot of quotations are there, discussion about hope. Romans chapter 12, be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, and faithful in prayer. Then in Psalms, the best part of Bible, the Lord delights in those who fear him, who put their hope in his unfailing love. Proverbs, there is surely a future hope for you, and your hope will not be cut off. In Romans again, may the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in him, so that you may overflow with hope by the power of the Holy Spirit. This slide I added because I thought I have half an hour, but then Gautam told you can continue for 60 minutes. Now, there are two philosophers of Christianity, Thomas Aquinas and Augustine, who have written on hope. There is a book, the title was difficult, but basically it is the thought of Augustine on faith, hope, and love. He has written a book, City of God, which is taught even now in most of the seminaries and 20 classes in Europe. So Christian philosophers such as Augustine and Thomas Aquinas analyze hope as one of the most central virtues of a believer. Hope is distinguished from faith, which is also based on incomplete evidence, by two features. Here they define difference between hope and faith. First, hope is necessarily directed to future events, whereas faith can also relate to past events. For example, the resurrection of Christ on Friday, Good Friday, that is a past event, but people of faith, they remember him. Second, hope only relates to what is good for the hopeful person, whereas faith can also relate to what is bad, such as punishment for one's sin. Finally, hope, faith, and love are seen as interconnected. The hope for a life after death also plays an important role in Augustine's political philosophy. The Oriental religions have a different philosophy than the Occidental religions because they have a day of judgment when some people will go to hell, others will go to heaven. So there is a lot of difference between the Indian traditions and the Western tradition. Now I go to my core theme, touching the edges of my lecture presentation, a glimpse of the Sikh way of life. Ananta Giri is very well read in Sikh philosophy, especially Guru Nanak. So he changed the mode of life in India, but unfortunately, we Sikh people or scholars, Indian scholar ever Bindu Ghosh and Tagore has written, we could not avail of the new philosophy revolution brought by Guru Nanak. Now we talk of Chaddi Kala, it is a Punjabi term. In Sikhism, Chaddi Kala is the Punjabi term for aspiring to maintain a mental state of eternal optimism and joy. Sikhs are ideally expected to be in this positive state of mind as a sign of their contentment with the will of God, which is called Pana. So you have to accept whatever God does to us as human beings or in nature or cosmology, one has to accept it. Even during the times of adversity. On the basis of my personal testimony, I can declare my readings into Sri Guru Granth Sahib gave me moral strength to face the upheavals of my life in school and college days. It started in 1955, 7th May, when the only sport of my life, my maternal grandmother, Nani Ji, she was killed because she was the landlady of the village, but without any male issue. Only my mother was living at that time. So the collateral, they thought the property will go to me. I was only 13 years. So they took all our properties and crops. So we had nothing to survive. But the only hope was my faith in the Guru. Now, Sikh formula to get rid of worries. You find all these things in the Guru Granth. Unfortunately, we revere Guru Granth almost as an idol in a Hindu temple. About 95% people, they don't understand the contents even, because it is in poetry, it is in different languages. There is a Sarbjit Singh from Atomic Energy who has counted that the Guru Granth Sahib has 50 languages, mostly from India, Asia, Persia, Arabia. So it is difficult. And then it is a mystic poetry. Now we need a very good translation. In Punjabi, we have got some translations, but in English and other language, there are people who are trying. So what is the formula to get rid of worries? The Guru gives a clear-cut formula. in life by making an honest effort. This again is Shabd in Guru Granth. Uddam karendiਆਂ ਜੀਵ ਤੂੰ ਕਮਾਉਂਦਿਆਂ ਸੁਖ ਪੁੰਚ ਤੇ ਆਇਂਦਿਆਂ ਤੂੰ ਪ੍ਰਭ ਮਿਲ ਨਾਨਕ ਉਤਰੀ ਚਿੰਤ. Of course, there was Hindi, but to make the font bigger, I just cut out, deleted the Hindi version. But English and Roman is there. Now, if we translate into simple or whatever available English translate, Uddam Krendya, Uddam means to make effort. For livelihood, you must make effort. Make the effort and you shall live, practicing it, you shall enjoy peace. You know, work is worship, that was realized by Guru Nanak. Of course, Hindu religion, many others, they talk of worship, but they don't give so much significance to work. Work is worship, but Guru Nanak, then the next line, you have to meditate on God. Meditating, you shall meet God, O Nanak, and your anxiety shall vanish. So this is the formula given by Guru Nanak to get rid of worries. Now, Sikh versus Indian religious traditions, I did not read many philosophy, Indian philosophy or other arts. I was just guiding Gianluigi that you read Upanishads, the fountainhead of Indian philosophy, but he went much ahead of me, what I was guiding him. Sikh religion has a view of life which differs from other Indian religious traditions. Guru Nanak rejected the life of asceticism vis-a-vis the life of a householder who earns his livelihood by dint of hard labor and shares the fruits of his earning with needy persons in the society. A Sikh can get liberated by leading a disciplined life of joy and merriment. You know, there is a TV program going on, Talent Search in India, I see on Saturday, Sundays. And a poor fellow from Bihar, he sleeps on railway stations, but he gets food from Dadar Gurdwara. I was touched when he's earning, being paid by the TV channel, maybe ZTV, that he survived in Bombay just because of this Gurdwara. You can get free food, free lodging, and other helps. So what is the difference? Indian religious tradition here, the Sikh tradition says, Nanak Satgur Petiye Puri Hove Jugat, Sandhya Khalandya Penandya Khavandya Viche Hove Mukt. The English version is, O Nanak, meeting the true Guru, one comes to know the perfect way. The true Guru who started Sikhism as a new tradition was Guru Nanak, followed by 9 other Gurus. But now the 10th Guru declared that Shabd Guru, the message or the Shabda recorded in Guru Granth Sahib will be treated as the living Guru. That is why Sikhs all over the world, they revere so much this holy book. The next line is sometimes misused by many Sikhs I know in Punjab. They drink too much. They say that Guru has given a sanction. You know, people, they start. Now, Guru Nanak says that meeting the true Guru and following his path, one comes to know the perfect way or the path. But the next line, naughty people, they started. This is a Hassan. While laughing, playing, dressing, as a king you can be dressed. There is no restriction in Sikhi way. And eating, you can eat any type of food except not the drug or other things are banned. So enjoy life by playing, dressing, and eating. And this is the liberation. We don't talk of liberation as in the West, that day of judgment will come, some will go to heaven, some will go to hell. Nor we talk of the Surga or Nark as in Hindu philosophies. The Sikh, once he realizes the Guru by meditation, by treating work as worship, donating to the needy, sharing the fruits of labor, he will be liberated during this life. So our Nark and Surg is during our life which we live in the world. Hope and desire in Sikh religion. I told you in most of the quotations, hope and desire, they are juxtaposed. As in geometry or in philosophy, I don't know how I explain you juxtapose. A Sikh is advised to follow the Gurmat. Gurmat is the path laid out by the Gurus. If he follows it, all his hopes and desires get fulfilled. Hope and desire must be compatible. Hope is a very dear and at a higher level, but desires can be dangerous also. Sometimes a thief or a robber has also a desire, a killer has also a desire. Hope and desire must be compatible, otherwise desires can dominate the mind and prove overwhelming and disastrous in the long run. So here is another quote, Aas manorth purna hove pet gur darsaya jiyo. His hopes and desires are fulfilled when he follows the path shown by the Guru. So there is a condition that you have to follow the path of the Guru, which is called Gurmat, live the life as guided by Gurus, and then your hopes and desires will be fulfilled. Ultimate hope. What is the ultimate hope? It is not, I am a fool little bit. I was a professor, then I was senior professor, then senior most. Ultimately, I thought I should be vice chancellor of some university in Punjab. So I have written how my hope was not fulfilled because of politics. And this is a very bad story in my biography. Ramesh knows about it. So ultimate hope is union with God. It is not to get riches or to get some power or post. The ultimate hope of a Sikh is to merge with Supreme Reality God, and this is fulfilled by the grace of God. Kar kirpa Prof Sangh Malaya. Showering his mercy upon us, God has united us with him. This is the ultimate hope one should have in this life. Aman Janrevad Bhagi Nanak Puran Asa Jiyo. This is again, reincarnation theory of Hinduism. Our comings and goings have ended, and through great good fortune, O Nanak, our hopes are fulfilled. So your, reincarnation or birth and death, this cycle is over once you are having a good fortune to meet the Guru. Prof ke Simran Purna, so the hopes can be fulfilled by regular meditation. Of course, the way how to meditate, it is a long story. It is also given in the Guru Granth. In the remembrance of God, hopes are fulfilled. Life beyond hope and desire. Of course, it is not like the Greek philosophers like Plato, who wrote much against hope. They did not appreciate. I have a little knowledge about Greek philosophy. But in Sikh scripture also, a man should aspire beyond hope. He should rise above hope and desire. What is that life? Hopes and desires should not become wishful thinking. Here is the point, wishful, which impedes the progress of life. Asa mahin ras bajaya. In the midst of hope, the Guru teaches us to live above hope and desire. Asaman sadhu banas trigun asnas. By hope and desire have both been dispelled. I have renounced my longing for the worldly possessions. Mere man enas pur rahi nit asau. My mind day and night, you are always full of wishful hopes. So hope is good, but it should not lead to wishful thinking in mind. That is the message of the Guru. Why crave for happiness? You know, everybody, why you run to America or Canada, Indians are very crazy. Every year we get more than 1.5 lakh 150,000 people coming as students. They say, oh, we will earn dollars. But why crave for happiness? Happiness and sorrow, pain and pleasure, they are intermingled in life. They are two sides of the same coin. So the message of the Guru is different. Sabko mange, sukh ko mange, sabko dukh na mange koi. Sukhe ko dukh agla manmukh bhuj na hoye. So this Shabda, it is giving us a guideline and showing a light. Everyone begs for happiness. No one asks for suffering, but in the wake of happiness, there comes great suffering. The self-willed manmukhs, those who have run away from the Guru's path, they are called manmukh. The self-willed manmukhs do not understand this. This is another formula of Sikh religion, that you should treat both hope and sorrow at the same level, same way. And there is a beautiful Shabda by Guru Tegh Bahadur, who was martyred by Aurangzeb in New Delhi. Jo nar dukh mein dukh nahi maane, sukh sneyar pehne jaake kanchan mati maane. So that man is liberated who does not feel sad when there is a adversity, and he does not overjoy when there is, prosperity. So keeping balance is recommended by the Guru. Again, same message, sukh dukh samkar janiye sabd ped sukh hoye. Those who see pain and pleasure as one, in the similar state of mind, if you can stay in pleasure and in pain. Of course, I don't find hardly any person who is liberated who can live that state. Even now, if my paper is published, I feel happy. But if my money is lost, my pension delay, I feel sorrow or pain. So this is the message, those who see pain and pleasure as one, at the same level and the same find peace, they are guided by the Guru's Shabda or command of the Guru. So avoid false hopes in life. This is another message of Guru Granth. Bhagat Kabir, he has, and as Ananta Giri told Jayadeva, Baba Farid, there is no distinction. It is a really library which supports life, which gives guidance for the whole humanity. You find untouchables, you find Brahmins, you find Muslims, you find Gurus in the Guru Granth. So Bhagat Kabir is in perfectly consonance and tune with Guru Nanak. He rejects the idea of having wishful thinking of attaining a place in heaven. He ordains his followers to rely on the will of God and desist from false hopes in life. Jab lag man baikuntha ki aas, tab lag hoye nahi charnavas. As long as the mind is filled with the desire for heaven, he does not dwell at the Lord's feet. Again, Bhakt Kabir, hona hai so hui hai, mane na kije aas. Whatever will, one will is with the capital W, other is with the small. That will is the will of God. Whatever will be, will be. So don't get your hopes up in your mind. So there is a beautiful corollary of Kabir coinciding or compatible with the Guru Nanak, and everyone should know Kabir has rejected many ideas of Hindu philosophy. He was living in Kashi before his death. He went to Maghar, a small village somewhere near Gorakhpur. I know all about this story. Just to prove that Hindus who go to Kashi to get liberation, it is a false dream. So Kabir lived in Banaras, Kashi, but he died in Maghar to prove some, fallacies of the Hindu religion, you can say. So I'm going to the end. Grace of God is necessary. We are believers in God. Sikh religion advocates faith in the grace, who is capable of fulfilling all hopes of his devotee. Uttar jaye tere man ki pyas, purna hove sagli aas. Aas means hope. The thirst of your mind shall be quenched and all hopes shall be fulfilled. Harsang rate purna aas. One who is attuned to the Lord sees all his hopes fulfilled. Jo pave teu rakhtu satya nanak man aas teri hoy. If it pleases you, then save me. True Lord, Nanak places the hopes of his mind in you alone, O greatest of the great. So this is, I come to the conclusion, Sikh religion does not guarantee fulfilling of hope if the followers go astray from the path of Gurmat laid down by the Sikh Gurus. So we have a belief system, sometimes coinciding with Islam, monotheism, but basically it is a monism. We see God in every man. We also follow Tat Brahm Asmi and the Upanishadic thought. So the follower, if he follows the right path laid down by the Gurus, then hopes are little things, they will be automatically fulfilled. This path entails Kirt Karo, Vandishako, and Naam Japo. This is again a formula which was practiced by Guru Nanak. For 24 years, he was going around Asia, meeting Muslim, Hindu, and Kailash Parbat everywhere, covering nearly 40,000 kilometers. But 18 years, he set up his town and he did agriculture, produced, crops, and created a langar, free food. And Muslims and Hindus of Punjab, they were participating in his congregation. It is a proof. If you go to Kartarpur, you can see Samadhi of Guru Nanak and cover of Guru Nanak, because both were fighting over how to bury Guru Nanak. So it translates to this formula, Kirt Karo, Vandishakun. Earning by honest means, share your earning with the needy and meditate on qualities of God. Hopes and desires are fulfilled by grace of God. So thank you for giving me so much time, and I hope I should stop here.
Thank you so much, Professor Hardev Singh, for a very deep presentation. So now we can continue our dialogue with or learning with Professor Singh. We request Jan, please, to make your thoughts, gift us your thoughts.
Yes, thank you very much for the invitation. I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much. It was very interesting. I have prepared a PowerPoint But before giving the PowerPoint, I would like to make perhaps two notes. That is, the concept of hope is a concept which I think in the Western tradition has different interpretations, in the sense that the ancient Greek thought, and I would say also the Latin, the Roman thought, especially with Seneca, have a common point. That is, they have interpreted hope as it were an emotion, a passion. That is, the Greek thought, ancient Greek thought, and the Latin thought have this common point. Hope is either an emotion or, more negatively characterized, a passion. And what does this mean? It means that hope as such is something which can, should not, ought not to, must not necessarily, but can bring the subject, the individual, in a condition in which the individual is no longer master of himself. This is, in my opinion, the root of a judgment on hope in the ancient Greek thought and in the Latin thought, especially with Seneca. This is the root of this negative or neutral judgment. That is, the judgment can be either neutral, not particularly enthusiastic about hope, not necessarily negative, but so that the hope is not something which, so to speak, is fundamental for the individual. That is, it is something which either should be avoided at all, or which can be born in the individual, but not something which I would say is particularly positive. And this can be seen in the ancient Greek thought, especially in the Stoics. In the Stoics, hope is not seen as very positive, because as emotion, as passion, brings the individual to the connected emotion of fear, fear that which is hoped for does not come about. That is, the individual begins to vacillate, to have a disposition of vacillation, of not mastering himself, of being so like a wave of emotion. That is, reason disappears and emotion takes the overhand in the individual. And this, for the Stoics especially, is very negative. And then in Seneca too, we can see, for instance, in the letters to Lucidium, it says that cease to hope and you will cease to fear. That is, give up hope and you will be free from the fear. Whereas fear is, of course, for Seneca negative. And this can be seen, in my opinion at least, in the Stoic tradition up to Spinoza. Spinoza then gives a very negative judgment in his Ethics of Hope. Hope is something which is emotion, is passion, gives no assuredness for the dominance of the individual. On the contrary, brings the individual to a condition in which the individual is not mastering himself anymore. This, I would say, is synthetically said, is a stream, a thread which we can see in the ancient Greek thought and in the Latin thought, and then in the Stoic tradition, up to Spinoza. That is, either hope is neutrally said, so not so important, something which we have, but which has no, so a great relevance for our mind and for our existence and for our way of being and for our behavior, or it is something which is negative and even very negative too. But of course, this is not the out point of the discussion. It is, I think that a positive evaluation of hope is in Christianity. We have seen that Professor Virk has quoted, for instance, Augustinus. And this is true, this is very true. The Christian tradition is, as regards the concept of hope, positively oriented. That is, hope is even a theological virtue with, of course, faith and love. That is, it is something fundamental for the individual. It is something fundamental for the existence of the individual, and it is something fundamental for the behavior, for the orientation of the individual in life, and for the orientation and connection of the individual with the faith and with the divinity, of course, and with life and with the afterlife. But there is an important point, in my opinion, which should be underlined. That is, in my opinion, the concept of hope, which Christianity, Augustinus, and then so on, the tradition of Christianity has interpreted, is a quite different concept of hope than the concept of hope which we have seen in Stoicism, in the Latin tradition, in the Old Greek tradition, and so on. With Christianity, hope has completely changed its sense and its significance. Hope has become not so much an emotion or a passion. No, hope is a way of knowledge, is a way of disposition, general disposition of the mind. That is, we have here no more an emotion, a passion which can bring you to a vacillation of life, which can consign you to an attitude, a behavior of your life in which you are like a wave. So you have now hope, then you have fear, and so on and so forth. No, in Christianity, hope is something, in my opinion, at least, completely different. We have here a conception of hope in which hope gives you really a formation, an education of your mind. Hope is structuring and is organizing your mind. You, in Christianity, the believer, has received the promise of God, the manifestation of God, has received the faith, and through the faith and through the promise, the individual is organizing his mind and his interpretation of reality, of history, and of the sense of creation, and of the sense of his own life in the world and in the earth and in the afterlife, which is, so to speak, a general orientation of his mind. It's no more a passion which can give you, so consign you to the vacillation of mind. No, here you have really a structure of mind. God has promised you something, and you organize through the hope in this promise and through the hope of the coming about of this promise, your own life. You give a general orientation. You change your life. That is, there is an individual before hope and before faith, and there is an individual after the receiving of the God promise, and therefore after the coming about of hope in this promise in himself. Therefore, I would say synthetically, there is a concept of hope in the Greek Latin tradition, and this is a concept, generally speaking, of passion or of emotion. And there is another concept of hope, which is completely different, at least as I say, which is the hope in Christianity. And this hope is an organization and an orientation of the mind. This is a way of structuring the mind, insofar as hope gives a general interpretation of the sense of the individual's life, of history, and of the connection between the individual, the minds of the individual, the faith of the individual, and God. So if I have a little time, I can show you perhaps, I would like to yes, let's see, only something of course, because I don't want to abuse your time, but only a paar minutes in order to give you an idea of hope in the Christian tradition, and most of all in the concept of the theology of hope, which is an interpretation of the last century, of this century, too, of the concept of hope in Christianity. And as I said, we can here see something about the main points of this concept of hope. The concept of hope, which is here being dealt with, is not that of a transitory hope directed to different, non-mutually connected aspects of life. This is what the Greek tradition, the Latin tradition, and then up to Spinoza criticize of hope. They see hope as something which is directed to these aspects of life, to these other aspects of life, and so on and so forth. And in Christianity, no. In Christianity, it's something completely different. The concept of hope corresponds to the mental attitude of the individual who receives God's promise of the resurrection, on the one hand, from the dead, and of the coming of the new kingdom on the earth. It is hoping in a complete change in reality. Hope becomes, and is therefore the constitutive disposition of the individual considering reality, its direction, its sense. It is an orientation on the significance, on the sense of reality. And Moltmann, for instance, the German theologian Moltmann says, as regards God's promise, a promise is a declaration which announces the coming of a reality that does not yet exist. Thus, promise sets man's heart on a future history in which the fulfilling of the promise is to be expected. God's promise. Now, you can see the meaning and the implication of hope and the resurrection from the dead for the orientation and disposition of the individual towards himself and towards reality are the point of hope. The text on which I am referring, Moltmann's theology of hope. Of course, Moltmann has written very much, and we say that hope in the resurrection from the dead implies a transformation of the believer's mind. The individual believing in God's promise of the resurrection from the dead implies a complete modification of the individual's mind. And the belief in the resurrection implies a change in the individual's interpretation of time, of reality, and of history. This belief implies a modification of the interpretation of the position of the individual in reality. And this belief, this hope, implies a modification of the self-understanding of the individual. So the promise of resurrection from the dead, the individual becomes aware that his condition in reality is the condition of the wayfarer. The individual learns that his own nature is heading for the fulfillment of history. The individual is on the way towards his own fulfillment. He is not the contemplator of an already fulfilled reality. He is not the inhabitant of an already fulfilled destiny. In order to clarify some of the subject of the inquiry, I would like to begin my analysis with a quotation from Moltmann's work, Theology of Hope, on the ground of the implication of a Christian eschatology. Through the following quotation, we can see that hope in the resurrection from the dead as such means for the individual a condition of conflict, of disagreement, and of disharmony with reality as it is given. Hope in the future resurrection from the dead turns out to be, for the believer, an enlightenment as regards the failures of the present reality. Moltmann says, present and future experience and hope stand in contradiction to each other in Christian eschatology, with the result that man is not brought into harmony and agreement with the given situation, but is drawn into the conflict between hope and experience. We are saved by hope, but hope that is seen is not hope. For what a man sees, why does he yet hope for? But if we hope for what we see not, then do we with passion wait for it? This is the letter to the Romans of the Apostle Paul. Everywhere in the New Testament, the Christian hope is directed towards what is not yet visible. It is consequently a hoping against hope, and thereby brands the visible realm of present experience as a God-forsaken, transient reality that it is to be left behind. And the contradiction, Moltmann says, forward to the existing reality of himself and his work in which man is placed by hope, is the very contradiction out of which this hope itself is born. It is the contradiction between the resurrection and the cross. Christian hope is resurrection hope, and he proves its truth in the contradiction of the future prospect, thereby offered and guaranteed for righteousness as opposed to sin, life as opposed to death, glory as opposed to suffering, peace as opposed to dissension. So, in order to end my intervention, not to abuse of your time, the Christian eschatology expresses a contradiction between present and future. It contains a contradiction between the individual's experience and the individual's hope. Hope in the new kingdom of God contradicts one's own life experience, and the new dimension of the future contradicts the present condition of the world. The dimension of the promised future represents God's opposition to the condition of the present. This opposition has consequences for the believer's mind orientation. The message of eschatology brings about the transformation of the individual's mind as regards the interpretation of the individual and the interpretation of reality. The contradiction expressed by the Christian eschatology means, for the individual's mind, the birth of the opposition between the individual's disposition of hope on the one hand and the experience of the individual on the other hand. Eschatology produces hope, and hope is the source of the caesura between the individual and the reality, and as reality is given to him. All of these know God's promise of the resurrection from the dead proves to be the message of negation of the given reality. Christian hope is resurrection. Since it is a resurrection hope, Christian hope is as such the negation of the dimension of death. Hope places the individual in the disposition of contradiction to the reality in which he lives. It places the individual in a state of contradiction to his own condition. Hope implies a conflict with the experience. It is as such directed towards a dimension different from the present reality. The essence of hope, therefore, consists in transposing the individual towards that which is not yet realized. And the effect of this transposition is that the individual learns to consider the dimension of the present experience as something which is to be left behind. Hope implies contradiction between righteousness and sin, life and death, glory and suffering, peace and deception. Therefore, the very nature of hope proves to be opposition to the present. And so I can conclude here, at least provisorily, in order, and I would like to make, so to speak, a short synthesis of what I have been saying. It is true, in the Greek tradition, old Greek tradition, ancient Greek tradition, in the Latin tradition, with Seneca, cease to hope and cease to fear. That is, give up hope and you will be freed from the fear. In Seneca, or up to Spinoza and the Stoic tradition, hope is either neutrally considered or negatively considered. This hope is something which is, and the root of this, the root, the cause, the ground of this either neutral or negative, rather negative or strongly negative judgment, is that hope is regarded as an emotion, a passion, and passion and emotion means in this stream of thought, in the thread of thought, something which anyway brings the individual to a condition in which the individual is no more able to master himself. It is the essence of the individual consists anyway not in any emotion whatsoever, and therefore not in hope whatsoever. But with Christianity, we have a radical change of mentality. because hope is a virtue. Hope is a condition of disposition of the mind. It is the effect of the promise of God. The promise of God consists in resurrection of the dead and the coming of the new kingdom on the earth, and therefore hope in the individual is no more an emotion, but on the contrary, it is a structure of mind. It is a fundament, a foundation of mind, a foundation of orientation and interpretation of reality, of the sense of history, of the connection with God. It is something which really gives you, so to speak, the future of man, the framework, the frame of the mind, the frame of the soul. And it is in particular something which gives you the awareness that the present reality, insofar as this reality is contrasted with contraposed to the promise of the new kingdom. The new kingdom is something which is positive, and therefore the present reality is something which is as defects, as failures. The concept of hope in the promise of God gives you the instruments in order to understand and to be aware, to become aware that reality as it is not the reality of God. It is not the reality which God wants to bring about, and therefore it is a reality which is to be left behind. It is a reality which is to be transformed, to be changed in order to anticipate as subject, as individual, the coming of the new reign of God. So synthetically said, we have two concepts of hope: the hope as emotion, and this is negative or neutral, and hope on the other side, on the other hand, as a virtue, as a disposition of mind. And this is Christianity. This means hope is a structure of your mind, gives you really a total, a general orientation of your mind on reality. So I would limit myself to this intervention, and of course I thank you very much for your invitation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gianluigi. I see smile in Randhir's face. As always, Gianluigi, you are so deep. And one important link here is that the way hope structures our mind, it gives an orientation. And that also brings us to the whole question of aesthetics, and not only ethics and salvation, but aesthetics in the sense that music, for example, the way, with Guru Nanak, the way music gives us a sense of, coherence, as, out of the chaos of the world. So therefore, the structuring of the mind, with hope also has an aesthetic dimension. So we carry forward this conversation. We have many friends co-present. So both Randhir and myself, we invite you to kindly raise your hand or share who would like to please speak. In the meantime, we can begin by requesting some friends co-present. We already, Professor Vidyasagar has raised his hand. And as he speaks, we would also like to invite Professor Ramesh Singh, Rahul Rupdeep Kaur, Professor Anand, Dr. Selvam, Minati, and Randhir in this. Please to take 1 or 2 minutes to please share your thoughts. So Vidyasagar ji, please. Yes, Vidyasagar ji.
Maybe there is some problem from his side, network problem. I think he had asked the question in the chat box also. So, yes.
Maybe you
So,
kindly read.
should I read the question?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hello.
Yeah, now we
Hello?
can. Yeah, we can hear.
Am I
please.
audible, sir? Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Or some audio issue. Yeah, I want to say that sometimes I get disturbed if someone hurt Australian, some high level things, naming vehicle, my own vehicle, and other things. Then how can we make our hope more, enhancing our hope in the emotional disturbance? Like if someone hurt, fired a bullet, maybe some enemy and other side, that I usually got disturbed. Is any hope, ethics, hope can enhance this disturbance, emotional imbalance? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And we request Professor Hardev to kindly, make a little note of these queries, and we will hear many people, and we will come to you at the end, please, if it is all right, so that we can hear many people. And then we request Professor Ramesh Singh, please. Okay, Professor Singh is taking time. Kaur Sahib. Okay, we have two Kaur, Harpreet Kaur and Kirandeep Kaur, both of them. Professor Ramesh Singh has come. Professor Singh, you can unmute yourself.
Oh, you are talking about me?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was away to drop my friend. Okay. So what is your question?
Now we request you to share some thoughts on Professor Hardik's presentation on this issue.
Okay, then.
1 minute, please. Some thoughts and question. Yes.
You are talking about the Dr. Virk?
Yes.
Any comment?
Dr. Virk, myself, we are friends since 1976. We met in an International Center for Theoretical Physics, okay, and I'm always in touch with him. He had organized a meeting when he was a professor at Amritsar. I attended his meeting many times. We met, and I had organized a meeting, and when I was at IIT Kanpur, he came over there. And today's lecture was really eye-opening, okay. And I was with the other friend, and Dr. Virk, he also met him. Vishwaneedam, Dr. Virk, okay. He came, okay. So you can see how we are talking about the good work, and if you want to go to heaven, hell, it all depends on your work, okay. And so we really enjoyed, okay. So I just went to drop Mr. Swani, okay. So the Dr. Virk is really at this age, he is very active, and he has written a number of books, and the science book, okay, physics book, radiation book, and quantum physics. Okay, so I really appreciate his vigor, his thinking. Okay, so I would like that everybody should continue such good work. Okay.
Thank you. There is Harbans Lal. He's, you know, it is 12:30. He will go to sleep.
Please.
Ananta Giri, can you ask
Yes,
Professor
yes.
Harbans Lal?
Yes, Professor Harbans Lal, please.
Well, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
It was Professor Hardev Singh Works, as usual, presented a aspect very ably. Question is, how do we communicate the message of religion, say message of Sikhism or other religions to younger generation? Our younger generations, both in the West, I know more in America than in India, going away from religion, and this is in every religion. It's in Christianity, is Islam, is Sikhism. The youth are not coming towards religion. So you people are researchers and observers, have any ideas? How do we, in my case, how do we take the message of Sikhism to our generation?
Thank you, Professor Lal. As Professor Lal might go to sleep, Professor Hardev Singh, you may like to share, please.
No, he's my guide and motivator, and you know, it's 10:30 here, our time to go to sleep also. So if there is a pointed question, I will like to answer. This problem, I am going to present another webinar in San Jose, California, on this topic, how to bring the youth back to the religion. You know, that is another topic. I will not disclose. There is no time here for discussion. So it was his general comment. I appreciate. So most of the people have gone because I think they have already left.
Okay, now Professor Singh, we have a few more thoughts. You know, we'll conclude in 10 minutes or so. We request your generosity. Some other friends are co-present. So,
but you don't invite them. If somebody raises hand, there is a cursor here. So otherwise, it becomes open forum. So if somebody is interested in asking a pertinent, pointed question, that will be okay. Because most of people have left. I'm counting maybe now only 10 or 12 are left. So it is daytime in India. Here it is getting late for sleep, you know. So can you finish it with your mark? Actually, I left closing my video, but then I thought I can wait and Gianluigi's discussion. So,
yes. So Professor Meera Chakravarti, ma'am. And
but
then we'll
with
take only
respect,
one
we
question.
have some friends. We'll just listen their thoughts for a few. I invite Professor J.S. Anand, please.
J.S. Anand sir just text me that he is outside. Yes.
Meera is there, Chakravarti. Yeah.
Oh, Professor Virk and also Gianluigi. Professor Virk, I would not agree with you as far as the concept that you are saying that Sikh versus Indian religious tradition. So this versus Indian religious tradition, which do not accept. I mean, Sikh religion would not accept renunciation. Not all religions. If you are acquainted with Ramakrishna Paramahamsa school of thought, and Vivekananda and Ramakrishna Paramahamsa always said that Jiva is Shiva, and therefore they made it a practice. Especially Vivekananda went to the extent of thinking that he could sell the site which was meant to construct the ashrama, the matha, to feed the poor and the hungry. So therefore, this tradition is there in other religion also, and we can't make that distinction. These two. That is one thing. The other thing is that the ground reality. We are in the midst of an emergency situation that is forcing us to varying states of distress, isolation, and anxiety. And here we are united in our vulnerability, in our courageous attempts to think and live differently as the fragility of situations reveal. So, to both Gianluigi and to you, I think, what is that? How do we? I mean, I don't treat hope as an object. If you objectify hope, then it becomes a different issue. So how do we also, as we are united in vulnerability, how do we get out of the situation and can become, as somebody pointed out, that the ground reality is so different. So how do you seek that kind of a feeling? I wouldn't say object, the kind of a feeling that we are, because basic feeling in all of us is the desire for freedom. So we want to be free from these situations. Thank you, Ananta and Randhir and Jan.
Thank you, Veera. I agree to disagree with you, because Hindu philosophy, if you go back to Sanatana Dharma, 4,000 years, and coming back to Ramakrishna and others, partially, of course, we are part of the Indian tradition. Buddhism, Jainism, Hinduism, they were classified even in constitution. And then there was a big fight in parliament. In Sikh representative, they have not signed this constitution because the same laws, the Hindu Marriage Act, and of course that is a little bit of fun. But if you study Guru Nanak, you will see that he wanted to create a society, but Indian people, they have not understood his message, because the Western, what you speak, the Westernized concept of religion is much different than the Indian tradition. Westerners, they classify Nanak with the mirror of, bhakti, or whatever you can say, syncretization of Hinduism and Islam. But definitely he laid down, the God was brought as a historical person, not living on hell or heaven. So he made people to work and realize, not like Ramakrishna in Samadhi and realizing something. That part, of course, in meditation, there is a beautiful quotation Ananta Giri has also quoted. Jaise jal mein kamal naralum murgai nesani. You should live in the life like a lotus. There is mud, there is, problems of life, but you should live like the lotus as in a pond, Similarly, like that bird which lives on water, but its wings are not. So this asceticism is not recommended. It is not the life of a householder. So if you go to Indian tradition, you will find a lot of melange, going from Charvak to other traditions, Vedanta, Vishishta Vedanta. It is a so complex a thing. So hope is a emotion. It is not to be objectivated, but for liberation, man, and the liberated man, he goes beyond hope. I have given you the example of Kabira. Bhagat Kabir lived his life he worked for 50, 60 or whatever his life in Kashi. But before death, He knew he went to a Maghar, which was to falsify the concepts of Hindus that if you die in Banaras or this Kashi on Ganges, this country, you will get liberated. So there have been some other bhaktas like, Ravi Das, Kabir, but they were not so bold thinkers as Guru Nanak. Guru Nanak created a tradition for 230 years. The Gurus, they, made it pakka. And only then, they stopped it, that the personal Gurus will not be there. The Shabda Guru is the Guru.
Thank you, Professor Singh. Thank you. We'll just have a few more minutes with your generosity. So some other friends co-present, please. Shobhana.
Good morning. I was just listening to Professor here, and a thought came to me. Very simply, that we are not different. We only express our thoughts differently because the Guru Parampara itself is from the Indian traditional schools of thought. So Guru Gobind Singh starts from that, hands it over as a thought process that needs to be improved. This is the greatness of this part of the world, because we don't say that we are the only religion. So I like to slightly disagree with you on that point, that it is different from the other traditions that exist in India. Sikhism is a part of this process where we are trying to find different ways and paths to reach the ultimate truth, which is the surrender ourselves to the feet of the Lord. So why do we have to differentiate and say, no, Sikhism is different from the Indian tradition? I think we need to make a small change in that process, thought process, so that we can take it forward to the younger generation. Because once we get that clarity, only then the younger ones will know what we are trying to talk about.
Thank you, Shobhana. And I know Professor Singh would like to share some thought. We request
I agree.
We request your generosity for a few more minutes. And now we request Minati, please.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, please put on your video. We would like to see.
Good morning, everyone. Actually, I'm sorry I missed the initial part of the webinar. Like what Ananta said, I didn't hear anything. And I thank Professor Hardev, Virk, and Gianluigi for that beautiful presentation. I don't know whether we have time now, or if I'm asking something question very relevant, please pardon me. So I have two queries. One thing is, what are the challenges in Sikhism? And second one is, how we can expect Sikhism to bring about the change in, how it can be about hope and optimism. So thank you.
Thank you, Minati. And now Randhir, please.
I think we are running out of the time, and Professor Hardev has already explained my queries. So, but if you can elaborate conception of Maya in Sikhism, that would be very good for me at least.
I have written about concept of God in Sikhism, concept of Naam, Maya. I have done a good essay, which was on academia. So it is not connected with hope. So I will advise you. You have got my email. So if you go on opening as this lady says, that she's asking about hope, which I have already presented. What are the challenges? I don't know what she means by a challenge. So Sikhism is surviving in India. It has gone to 110 countries. So the number is small, but the message is very clear. So we face a lot of problems due to turban in India. Can you believe in Paris University, even when I submitted a thesis in 1972, the report in the newspaper was a Muslim from Pakistan has discovered. I made some discoveries. So people get confused for our identity. So I think questions not related to hope, we can postpone, or I have a paper on,
Thank you.
but I will.
Thank you so much, sir. And I think this is time to say goodbye and good night to you also. And Professor Giri, if you would like to say something.
Yes, so let us let us have a little bit of dance of thanks. So Minati, you may like to offer a dance of thanks, please.
Thank you, Ananta, for giving me this opportunity to give the vote of thanks.
Please open your video, and you may like to say song of thanks, not just vote,
Yeah.
or dance of thanks.
On the behalf of Vishwaneedam Center for Asian Blossoming, I am Minati Pradhan, would like to thank our chief speaker, Professor Hardev, Virk, and Professor Gianluigi. And thank you, sir. Thank you for your very beautiful and deep presentation. We learned so many things. I also would like to thank our moderator, Professor Kumar Giri, for giving us this opportunity to learn about Sikhism. And I also would like to thank Professor Ramesh Singh, and Professor Harban Silal, and Professor Vidyasagar ji, and Professor Meera Chakravarti for their beautiful insight and the questions. And I would also like to thank all the participants in Facebook, in Zoom platform. And last and not the least, I would like to thank our convener, Professor Randhir Kumar Gautam, for arranging and executing so beautifully. And I also personally thank him and Ananta bhai, because I had forgotten it is thinking it is in the PM. So thank you for reminding me. And thank you all. And pardon me if I am leaving someone.